That's all right. I don't have any insecurities. You can be taller than me. It's fine. I'm not going to be I don't really care. I'm like, what is? You're taller than me.
On that note, welcome to some Real Talk Fridays. I'm Meg, as you know. This is Ben McKinnon.
Yeah, no, thank you for inviting me. It's a lovely day in Newcastle. Well, not really. It's a little bit rainy, but
still lovely though.
Still lovely. Yeah, I've got some palm trees out the back. Got a big section. We're probably not that far from the ocean. I can't complain.
No, we're not very far at all. And Ben's from Wollongong, and he's an really interesting fellow, and he's a yoga teacher and many more. He's doing some workshops here in Newcastle at the moment. Not now, right at the moment he's with me, but at the moment
it could be in two places at once.
It could be.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I'd like to be able to do that one day.
So I got some really interesting workshops on lucid dreaming and sleep.
You can't do that in dreams though, so we'll work on that.
Who knows? Maybe we're not watching this right now. Who knows?
Yeah, they can. You can split yourself. I mean, the first time I did that in a dream, I was like walking down the hall and I was like, I wonder if I could go down this hall and that place at the same time and then split myself. And then,
how'd that go?
And then so you had both experiences at the same time.
And you did it?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I always
what happened?
So it's just like I was doing the hallway and walking down the other corridor, but I was like on both places at the same time, experiencing two things instead of one thing. And I always thought like that would be fucking amazing if I could do that in my life.
Nothing's impossible.
Well, I don't know. You see all this crazy, you read all those old crazy Hindi things about, some guys like here and then someone sees, like in Tibetan Buddhism too, and then they see him like, 1,000 kilometers away.
Did you hear of that in that?
Did you hear of it? So obviously it's the thing.
They say that what we practice grows stronger, so who knows, Ben?
Need a lot of practice.
Oh, bless. But we're here to talk about things that are a little uncomfortable, right? I think both of us
that's good.
love to make people squirm and just feel uncomfortable, but discuss the things that can be awkward and that can be triggering in that sense, but also need to be talked about.
For sure.
So I think when Ben arrived this afternoon, I think the one word that kind of popped up often between us was like overwhelmed and broken, and people sort of struggling in the world we're in today, sort of post COVID and whatnot.
Continuation of the COVID saga.
Yeah.
People getting tired.
Exhausted, overwhelmed, all those kind of words, and just expanding onto that a little bit, I think, and just our thoughts onto that.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about for the podcast, your experience, I think where you're working is quite a good lead-in with what you're seeing with obviously a lot of people who are very busy or in the corporate world, or they're just completely burned out. And this is similar to maybe things I saw or I also see in mental health nursing and subacute mental health nursing. So say it's always been there, like the alcohol, the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD, but then the burnout. But now I guess with all the sort of uncertainty with COVID and financial problems and things like this, and the stress in people's relationships, and people probably, definitely drinking more than they used to, and they taking more substances than they used to. You're seeing this definitely this big influx where like the hospital I was working at, just constantly full of people. Just people are they're just like, I don't know what the fuck to do, and I need to do something, and so I'm going to enter into the system, which is primarily what I would say would be like an integrated medical model, which, has pros and cons. That be medications sometimes overused and creating their own sort of addiction problems. But then what you're seeing where you're working with the people coming in and...
Yeah, and definitely it's, been a definite pattern, working at a wellness retreat, which has just been amazing, but seeing this pattern of 30, 40, 50, 60 plus age group demographic just coming in absolutely broken, this sense of numbing everything, this overriding sense of busyness that everyone is just trying to accomplish everything to strive to the next level, to be someone better than, is causing all this anxiety and stress.
Yeah, totally.
And it's coming out physiologically in the bodies, where Ben was talking about what he's seeing in the medical industry of people to the point where they're now becoming addicted to medication, alcohol, drugs. And where's the end point to that is...
Yeah, and whether they're, I guess the question I've always asked is are people being, like, say, I mean, if I come to a, I guess I go to a...
Did you say a fire or if I?
If I.
Oh, it's the Kiwi accent?
Yes, if I.
Because it's a fiery as well, and I fire or talking about it.
Yeah, it's true. It does sound a bit like that, doesn't it? But yeah, if I, really,
sorry, go ahead.
Say I come to a doctor and I say to the doctor, I'm super overwhelmed and I'm feeling depressed and anxious and I'm not sleeping very well. Now, I guess the problem is because you go to a doctor and the doctor's normally busy, they've got 15 minutes or whatever it is, and then you talk to them and they don't really have the time quite often to dissect, well, okay, why are you unhappy? Well, I'm happy because I fucking hate my job. Or, my relationship's going really badly. Or, my children are undermining me. Or, so there's all these different reasons, yeah? So it's like this thing of getting to the root cause of why someone is unhappy, yeah? As opposed to what we tend to do, which is a very Western attitude, is this thing of where we'll kind of not go to the root cause and we'll sort of try and make it so it keeps going. So, we're sort of like, that's like, I think Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb's quite a good one for it, where, you feel like shit, all right, we'll give you something that'll keep you going. You'll feel numb to the world, but you'll be able to keep going, but you won't be happy, but you'll be able to function.
Yep.
And I think
this level,
yeah, so it's an interesting, like, I definitely see like a big need for, like, probably for me the medical versus the holistic, like the more of these places, like these holistic model retreats where people can actually free to relax.
It's presenting the question. Tara Brock says, what is it we're unwilling to feel? And I numbed and ran from everything for like nearly 30 years because I didn't want to feel the pain and the hurt and the belief in myself that I wasn't enough. It was too much for me to bear, so I'd find every single thing I could and every drug under the sun and, the alcohol and the not eating food, because for me, I wanted to be on that level where I was just above the feeling, where it was like, oh, I'm just surviving, it's okay, but it could be so much better, but I didn't know.
Am I thriving though?
Yeah, no, I was just exactly that. I used to see grey, like that was how numb I was. Things were not beautiful to me at all, like environment and whatnot, and I see so much of it in the last 9 months of just this sense of it's I'm here but I'm not here, and I think that's it's something that is really, really common, and it's a difficult one because it's once we, I think, can be given it's the same as phone addictions and things like that. Once we're taking something or whatever, we can become so dependent on what's making us feel better in that sense, or making us feel numb, that it's difficult to see another solution in that sense.
So what do you think then with these, these people who are burned out, and I'm seeing these people obviously who are sort of not coping and stressed and addictions and feelings of inadequacies and, because constant like race to be, the best, there's somewhere they've got to be when they'll finally be happy, and they're sort of running on this treadmill. And the way I explain it is kind of like you're living in this world where you're outsourcing your happiness.
Looking completely outside.
So like say I'm a corporate business, and you have some sort of feeling of inadequacy, and I'm like, well, I've got the thing for you, and it's only $99.99, and you'll have to buy it every month or something, and you'll feel better about yourself, and you'll have to keep it up for the rest of your life. And it's like this thing of kind of like making you feel like your happiness depends on you consuming something.
Totally.
And then you're now consuming this thing, and I'm like, well, I've got another thing, you
Yeah.
know, that would make you feel even, you know,
Yeah.
you'll be even better. And then I will, you know, obviously through celebrities and influencers and things like this, I'm going to be like, you know, do you want to be like these people? Like, look how happy these people are. They're living such awesome lives, you know. And then I guess I've met people who have been like, you know, dealt with some of mental health, like some people who have been like quite high level professionals. And you see that they're not happy, they're totally fucked up, their lives are screwed. But the perception in the public is like, if I get to where they are, I'm gonna
be happy.
Yeah.
Life's gonna be fucking amazing.
But it's quite often not.
And this is the thing, it's this conditioning as such that is around us everywhere. You know, we were speaking just before this video about things such as TikTok and you know, I've spoken about a lot, you know, right down into selfie and Snapchat dysmorphia, where we're now feeling the need to really modify our physical selves, our faces, our wrinkles, our flaws as such to look perfect. And, you know, Ben was extending onto that as to how that can extend out onto like the school playground as such, where younger men are perceiving an image of women due to what they look like on their Instagram or TikTok. And that expectation now is just a constant. So we're thinking a guy or a girl should look a certain way, and when they don't look that way, we don't feel enough. So therefore
we look for someone
reaching for consumerism, and something's going to make us feel enough. So they always say, if we look, we're always looking, we'll always be searching. We're just constant on this ride to make us feel or look better than what we already are.
So it's like a sense of it's like a big thing in consumerism is built around the sense of lack, like you lack something, so I can get you that thing that you lack, and then by getting you that thing that you lack, you in some way feel, you know, enough. But then the thing is like I want to keep you as a you know, like I want to keep you as a customer. So it's not like I don't want to give you just once. I need to keep you. Like a big one is like some of the nurses at work who are like in their like early 20s getting they don't have wrinkles, but they're getting preventative Botox. So they're getting Botox so before they get the wrinkles. So about, you know, so I say, so what do you do? So, you know, every 3 months I just get my, and I said, well, how am I going to have to keep it up? So I just, you know, have to keep it up. You know, so now it's like, it's quite ingenious, because it's like, okay, you don't have wrinkles, that's cool.
Don't develop them though.
No,
it's not natural.
But how can I sell to you a product that's for wrinkles?
Smart, isn't it?
So it's very like, when you look, it's quite genius, because I'm basically turning the person into a, you know, I guess a consumer of a product before they even developed the need to consume it. So it's all of a sudden got this huge back mark. It's also done in America with, so when big one is, so Prozac got rebranded under a different name.
That's right.
Yes, and it's now used.
And
it's now used for when like young girls are starting to move towards puberty and they're starting to have behavioural changes. And they're using it as a way of like managing the behavioural changes. So it's quite common in America. So like my daughter's getting really fucking crazy. Like, what's going on? It's like, you know, she's turning into a woman, and the mother's like takes it on to the doctor, and the doctor's like, oh, you know, well, we'll give her whatever the new name is. But it's Prozac. So now this is what we're finding is a big market for Prozac for like, you know, girls sort of like just hitting like beginning of menstrual cycles.
So not allowing them just to move through it naturally.
Yeah, have the emotional stuff, and it's like
teaching them to not feel their emotions.
Yeah, and also trying to suppress. So the parents is like, oh, I don't want to fucking deal with this. I'm too busy, you know. I don't need this girl having a massive meltdown.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I'm going to go take her to the doctor. Doctor's like, well, we've got this thing. It's Prozac. Now look at her behaviour's better, yeah. But now she's on Prozac, and then Prozac over time starts to mess with the serotonin, dopamine receptors.
Like anything over time, it's even the Botox, that over time, it's not going to get the same result as it did when you're 20.
You need more, and then eventually you end up looking like, you know, a cat or something, you know, or, you know, got that like where
Cats have lots of wrinkles.
No, there wasn't. No, what is it like where everybody looks like they're, like this one where like everybody looks like they're related to each other.
Oh yeah, it's that same like colour.
So it's the fillers and the Botox, but it's like this thing where you'll be out somewhere and you'll be like, it's like everybody's each other's cousins.
Griff Armada wrote a song about that.
Yeah,
like, everybody looks the same.
Yeah, everyone looks the same, and it's very interesting because it's like this thing of where, that's very scary. I guess a big thing is, we're talking about the thing of I brought up about. Say, okay, I'm a male and I see these guys on Instagram and they've got big muscles and I'm like, all right, I need to be like this because then women are going to like me. Yeah. So I've got to be absolutely perfect body, and I might start taking steroids or whatever types of things I can get my hands on to do that. And then from the other perspective is like, and then I'm seeing these women that I want to attain or have relationships with, and they look a certain way, and maybe some of them have had work done or they've had filters, they've used things to make their bodies look different.
Me Too, Snow.
All
of those apps, yeah.
And then let's say, good one is like, I don't know, and then maybe like even think of it like a friend of mine went on a date recently using Tinder, and so he saw the girl's profile, she looked the way that he was like, oh, she looks like her, And so he meets her and she doesn't look quite like that, so she's obviously...
see that pretty often, hey?
So she's used some filters in order to make her profile be more palatable, so that she'll get more men to go on a date with her. So she gets what she wants, which is feeling a sense of like,
high dopamine,
but also just like a sense of like meeting someone and wanting to be happy and human connection, and then he sees her and she doesn't look that way, and then he maybe doesn't go on a date with her again. And so there's this thing of then she feels like she's inadequate, so then she then consumes more of these products.
To fill that void.
And the problem is like there's two folders. It's not like, one is, okay, she puts something that's not her, but the other one, it's the guy's fault because the guy is conditioned for something which is not real. So it's like this thing of like she's forced, and it's quite ingenious because you've kind of got like both of them are turned into consumers in different ways. Like the man is driving the woman's use of these products. So in a sense, it's like, this thing of like the men are like sort of driving the woman to look a certain way because they're conditioned. And then also like a big one with younger males and a lot of males is pornography.
Oh, 100%. I'm so glad we went there.
Yeah. So the conditioning of the female figure through pornography. And then the conditioning of, so you look at like, I remember like a friend showed me the porn stars and I was like, Jesus Christ, they've all got Botox face.
100%. It's not real. Like what you say, the sex isn't real. They're like,
But then you think like, I remember like being a teenager, I remember being like 14 and like seeing Penthouse on a magazine store and just sneakily sneaking one, like I was like, oh, this is my first foray into, so I'm looking through that and and now I think, okay, I'm 14 in 2021. Like, what the fuck am I gonna say?
100%. And it's so,
Jesus.
That's what's happening with these young girls too, and it's not, again, the girls or the guy's fault. It's this conditioning and consumerism where they're thinking it's okay to like gangbang on like a train. Like I don't watch TV, but I saw on the project maybe a month ago, these two young girls, and this is what happened to one of the girls, and it nearly blew my mind. In the open, because they think it's okay because they see it on porn.
It's conditioning.
And and again, it's just, that's just one aspect of it. And again,
it's the younger. Also, what happens too is like there's this thing where like when someone's sort of, in their teens, there's also like you're still wiring up. So it's not like you kind of haven't wired up completely.
You are,
So you think like, okay, girls and boys are being exposed to these types of things. They're starting to think that that's normal because their parents won't talk to them about it.
No.
So they see the shit and they're like, okay, well, that's how it is. And so everyone starts to engage in these behaviors. And the weird, but it's like a self-perpetuating cycle because the pornography shows a type of behavior, the kids take on that behavior, and then that behavior does become normal to that generation.
100%.
So like the gangbang on the train becomes like, hey, do you hear about the gangbang on the train?
Yeah,
Oh, did you hear about the train
cool.
last week?
Yeah. Totally. It's a practice, isn't it? Like it's
Yeah. So it's the conditioning, and the thing is like there's like good conditioning and bad conditioning, good habits and bad habits. And at the moment, it's really interesting because it's kind of like technology is making all these things happen, and they're not all bad. But it's really interesting of like where we're asking the question of like, does, you know, consumerism and capitalism and the constant upgrading of technology, is it actually, are we functionally better off or not? And I don't think it's a conversation that people are having. Is like, are our lives actually any better? Yeah. Are we any happier? Are we more connected? Or are we actually like kind of more entertained and disconnected? And, you know, I mean, it's like this thing of even like things of rates of depression and anxiety. Like we are technically more connected.
Yeah.
But we have more depression, we have more anxiety, we have more suicide.
Yeah.
So it's like this thing of, if we look at the markers of what is, you know, in the society is positive signs, we're actually seeing it overall, I would say, from being 41 now. Remember getting the internet when I was maybe 17 and it was dial up. We had a landline. Got my first cell phone probably when I was like 20.
It had Snake on it.
Yeah, you know, just it was. And then I remember this thing of like where it was, guess it got to this point where I look back on that time and I think, like, was my life worse off or better off? And I would say that for sure I couldn't do as many things as quickly as I wanted to, but I also would say I felt like I had a lot more time. Yeah, I wasn't as rushed.
We had more space, definitely. It's been just when I was talking before about the connectedness, and again, this is just where my research has been sitting recently, and I just grabbed this because I wanted to get his name. Back in the 1970s, it'll come to me if I can't find it, I'll post it at the bottom here. There was an experiment done called the Rat Park experiment.
Oh, yeah. No,
and this is really interesting. So with my research on TikTok at the moment about, again, in and around Snapchat and selfie dysmorphia, people are committing suicide due to selfie dysmorphia because they're getting so attached to the image that the screen is showing back to them. So when they do go out in public, they're getting anxiety, depression, and of course,
they don't want to go out.
That 100%, and the rates are getting higher and higher. And this experiment is linked in with addiction and connection. And of course, back in the 70s, they had the experiment where there was a rat in a cage, and they had two choices. One was cocaine water, and one was water. And of course, the rats would choose the cocaine water. I mean, you wouldn't over water, like if you're just stuck in a cage. And the rats would obviously get high and then die. And then this scientist came in again. I've got his name here, but I'll post at the bottom. He was like, hang on a second. There's nothing else in the rat's environment. So something's got to change in his environment to choose differently. So he created a rat park where the rats could have friends and have sex and have food and what are they called? The spinning
wheels. The wheels and playgrounds.
It was like a theme park for rats. And they still had the choice of the water and the cocaine water, and they experimented with this for quite a while, and not one rat died. They chose other things in their environment, and they also had sips of the cocaine water, as you would.
But didn't become addicted.
But they didn't become addicted. So there's this connection of the addiction that we can create when we don't change our environment. So when we're constantly on our phones or our devices, and this disconnection from human beings, we start to make choices that create
we choose the cocaine.
Yeah, 100%. So we make ourselves unwell. That's where the self-talk, the self-sabotage then turns into an addiction of some sort. And then the depression and anxiety, and then further on suicide.
The social ways, with the rat park, the social disconnection, which is essentially like the rat becomes more isolated. Because I think...
no stimulant. There's no...
Yeah, but even like relationships, neighbours and things like that. Like I remember when I was a kid and, you knew your neighbours next door. And you were involved with them in some way and you would help them in some way. And then I think like what I've seen over time is like, be it through my personal choices, but also through what seems like a general consensus, is that more often people are starting to be more disconnected from their neighbours, less engagement with the people around them. Like they're sort of like, and then
in a box.
Yeah, it's interesting. But the rat part one's a good example actually of what I think is going on for sure.
Yeah, we're just really losing connection. We're born into connection. We're born to move. We're born to connect. We're born to have sex. We're born to play, and we just lose it all and we become numb. And I think that's the guts of this conversation is if we're finding ourselves in this numbing sense, there's something underneath it. Like it is. I mean, do the work and get underneath it. It's like, what is it that's underneath the numbing? Why am I choosing the alcohol or the porn or the phone and screen time and stuff like that?
I think connections are definitely, if you have like, I think we're talking about earlier about to the like this thing of where, like, say, I mean, I've this interesting thing is like I always weigh things up against my dreams and the amount of lucid dreams I have and the clarity of my dreams and maybe like how, like the meaning of my dreams and whether there's sort of learning in the dreams or it's just dreams about sort of nothing.
Yeah, right.
And so like if I'm maybe not having as many lucid dreams as I normally would, or I am having dreams that are just about nothing, like there's no sort of like premonition, there's nothing sort of like meaningful or teaching, or it's just sort of nothing there, then I generally will look at things like what's going on in my life.
Is that due to busyness or doing too much or
it's interesting,
overdoing possibly?
What if it's all about attention?
Okay.
So it comes down to attention. So when you look at like
being present.
Yeah, so like say all spiritual practices, especially like when you move towards like development of more advanced practices, is the ability to sustain attention. 100%. So the first practices are learning how to hold attention. So it might be like people, they'll look at a candle and just hold their attention for 15 minutes, or they might say a mantra repetitively for 15 minutes, or they might just sit and observe their breath or scan their body. And so there's this, okay, we're going to pay attention to one thing or a very narrow thing for 15 minutes. And that ability to pay attention kind of becomes the basis of building an ability to pay attention for longer and longer periods. And so like in a state called shamatha. So shamatha is the ability for a practitioner to hold single pointed attention for generally the 4 hours.
Yeah, okay.
And so once someone has attained shamatha, their dream...
Good luck in the world we live in today.
Yeah, good luck, yeah.
Especially with phones beeping at us all the time and people who wear Apple Watches and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, what's my heart rate? What's that? I got a text message. So there's this, in order... Like, and then when you kind of go into the more advanced dream practices, if you don't have the basis there, it becomes harder to have the stability, because essentially a mind that can hold attention single pointedly for 4 hours is incredibly stable.
Totally.
But then the minds that develop shamatha, especially in Tibet, came from people who were just herding goats, and there was very minimal extra. It was just their lives were generally just simple. You just did one thing. There wasn't too many things you did at once. You might be busy.
People pride themselves, don't they, on being, what's the word?
Multitasking. Yeah. So multitasking is an interesting, because not to say we can't do a few things at the same time, but this capacity to pay attention. So this capacity to pay attention kind of paves the way in many ways to your ability to connect to something bigger than yourself. So like say if I'm super distracted, like I'm really in this and I'm like looking at this and what's that, and then I got my phone goes off. It's really the way I explain it is like I'm a bird in a park, and I'm kind of walking around the park and I'm distracted by the park, but I've got no awareness of like anything else but the park.
Yep.
And then as you practice and you develop attentional stability and you're not so distracted, it's possible then to kind of like the bird kind of goes up higher, it takes off. And it's then able to sort of see the layout of the park. And then it goes further and says, well, the park's within a city and the city's within this other place. And so there's this thing now where what made no sense in the park, because it happened over another end of the city, now makes sense because they can see the actual
The
the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's like connecting.
It's like being the observer kind of thing. Is that, or this watching of what's going on.
Yeah, or just connecting.
Paying attention.
Connecting to something like we talk about, like you have a conceptual. You might have like a qualification, or you've done lot of study, or you have all the right credentials, and so I know there's plenty of doctors who are drug addicts, there's plenty of psychologists with incredibly dysfunctional relationships, there's plenty of psychiatrists who abuse their patients, and not to say there's not good doctors and good psychiatrists and good psychologists, because there are, but just because you have a piece of paper doesn't actually mean that you have like true wisdom.
It's a good word.
So to have wisdom, you need to have like this capacity to pay attention
and connection to your intuition as well, as speaking about before.
You need attention
where it comes through you. It's
but say if you're distracted, there's no space. So generally, if you want to connect to something bigger than yourself or your intuition or whatever we're going to call it, you have to have the space. So say like something's trying to give me an answer to something in a sense of like some sort of synchronicity or intuition, and I'm just like so busy and distracted, can't hear it. So this is the thing, is like everybody has this capacity to connect to something bigger, but in order to connect to something bigger, we have to learn to pay attention. But we live surrounded by things which make us essentially distracted.
We live in a constant world of distraction, isn't it? As Rumi says, when we're quiet, we're able to hear. And I knew that so well. I didn't know what quiet was, I think, and many of us don't. And I know when I start to step out of that, it's it's what we talk about in the be here method. In that sense, is when I'm present, I can make a choice, and that's a choice to slow down and reconnect back to intuition, guidance, God, source, whatever you want to call it. For that wisdom to drop in, it's something that's available to all of us. None of us
need space.
Yes.
You need to pay attention.
Pausing.
Stopping. So I guess like we did, like lead it into maybe like a finish, is like we could just say, like we've talked about, I guess, like we were in this thing of like obviously there's all these things that are going crazy and quite wrong, and so what power do we have? Like what power do you have in a world that seems to be running away, and you can't seem to do anything about it? And you may not be able to, like the world might just go off the rails, and everyone might turn into clones of each other, and they're addicted to their phones, and that might be something absolutely out of your control.
It is.
So the thing, if you don't want that and you want to choose something else that might be, you're less reliant, you're less of a consumer, then it starts with this thing of like, okay, maybe I'm going to go for a walk and I'm not going to take my phone. Or I'm going to set aside, where every time I wake up I'm going to sit here for 10 minutes and just focus on my breathing. Or I'm going to start, writing down my dreams if I can remember them. Like that's a big one. Because that's many ways the subconscious mind gives content in that way, and that's the big one for me. Like it's not for everyone.
Well, they do say that I don't know much about lucid dream. Ben's the one for that, but they do say that you get a lot of answers in your dreams, and you go through these. Sometimes you can even heal trauma. Bessel van der Kolk speaks about that a lot in The Body Keeps the Score. But as I said, a lot of the time
just journaling. How am I feeling today? Like journaling.
It is just that true sense of we can't fix what's going on around us. None of us can. We can't fix another person, but we can do something about ourselves, and it is about choosing to be present and actually making a kind or a compassionate choice to pause, slow down, and then do something that feels good for us. And that's available to all of us. And on a big scale, that can change the world. Rather than conforming to what society thinks we should, could, or would be.
Definitely. Yeah, awesome.
I think
thank
we
you
covered
very much.
it.
That was good. I think we covered a lot. Well, thank you for. Hopefully you got anything out of this, and hopefully you'll see more of this girl doing some more of this with some interesting people.
Definitely
Yeah.
will. But if you're interested, he's amazing about the lucid dreams and the sleep
I
workshops.
put a link or something.
That's what I was looking for. So check him out. Go on. It's something I would love to learn a little bit more about. But thanks, Ben.
Oh, thank you. Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, there you go.